Hey everyone. In this conversation, Jordan Peterson and Douglas Murray explain to Sam Harris why dogma is unavoidable. This is a fascinating part two to my two-part reaction series to this conversation. I think it's an important point that's not made often enough, so I'm not going to hold you off from it anymore. Hope you enjoy the video.
Can't you say that dogmatism is the problem? The generic problem here is dogmatism, the firm belief.
This is what veterans are doing to increase their disability rating.
Two of the conditions.
In the absence of good argument and good evidence.
And absolutely, we can agree that dogmatism of any kind has that danger, or will always have that danger. But
it's also necessary.
Also has a danger.
Dogmatism always has that danger, but dogmatism is also necessary to some extent in limited circumstances for the reasons I just described. I have a video about this too, about how most people don't want to think through things to this extent, or they just don't have the time. We have heuristics for a reason. I think there's a thread to pull on there, but I think it's a video of its own.
Danger, or will always have that danger. But the void also has a danger. The void that you can create if you throw out all the stories that helped get you to where you are also has this danger, because people come up with these news stories. And every day's news now is about this. Our politics is now basically about this.
Yes, because we have gotten rid of religion to some extent, not totally, but as religion arose, our politics become basically religious wars, because all of a sudden it's not that we all agree on the religion of this shared values and then politics are the practical business of running the country. No. Now that religion has eroded, our politics have become religious because all of a sudden we've started arguing over those fundamental values. This is 100% right. Harris wants there to be a reality where we throw out all dogma and we leave a vacuum of dogma and just exist in it. I don't think that's possible. I think that we're going to be operating on a naturalistic principle. Nature abhors a vacuum. I think human beings abhor a complete lack of dogma, a complete lack of rules and assumptions, and I think that those will always be filled, as recent history has been showing us. Again, I'm kind of parroting Douglas here, so I'm sorry if you guys just don't like me talking this much, but I do think that this idea needs to get like 50 exclamation marks for this idea, because I think it's true. And at the very least, the belief that we can exist in a complete vacuum of dogmas is a completely theoretical and untested idea that has not been demonstrated to be true anywhere. At the very least, you have to agree to that. On a societal level, in a lab, sure. On a societal level, you've never seen that happen. So, very real point here.
Actually.
Yeah, and what's flown in to fill the gap seems to be something like a new tribalism.
Absolutely.
Which is exactly what you'd expect in some sense, right? If you demolish the superordinate system, religion divides people, no doubt, but it also unites people.
Yes.
And so one of the things that arguably unites people above their mere tribalism is their union in an abstract religious superstructure.
Yeah.
And then if you demolish that, well, then one of the things that does seem to happen is the emergence of a reflexive tribalism, because people need a group identity of sorts. And the easiest thing to do seems to be to revert to ethnicity and race and gender and sex, etc., etc.
And look what's become the most important political topics of the day. Those things, as religion has eroded. Just like I said, our politics has become religious. Masterclass by Douglas and Peterson here. This is the best showing that they've had against Harris in any of my videos so far. This is very good. Kudos to both of them.
And then we do end up and have ended up in this situation that Douglas outlines. And, one of the things I think that distinguishes us temperamentally, possibly, maybe because you're a little more on the liberal side and I'm a little more on the conservative side, even temperamentally speaking, is that your fundamental terror is that of fundamentalism, although you also state in the moral landscape that you understand the perils of nihilism. And I would say my fundamental terror is that of nihilism, even though I'm sensitive to the catastrophes of fundamentalism. But I don't think you do it.
Great way of thinking about it, by the way. This is a good thing to start doing, is when you think about people who are on the opposite side of the political aisle than you, it's good to think about the issues. We talk about the war of ideas here, but if you're talking to the person, you want to understand the person, try to understand them in this way, in terms of temperament, in terms of their greatest fear, in terms of their thing. So as a conservative individual, you're much more cautious about change because you fear the risk of change. That's your bigger fear, stuff like that. It really helps with empathizing with other people. It helps with understanding them, and it ultimately helps with communication in the long run. So good trick of the trade there that Peterson's laying out. Clinical psychologist popping out of the back pocket there.
Address the problem of the void sufficiently, because I don't think that you have anything to offer except, and I'm not trying to minimize your offering. You make a case that people should work to alleviate suffering and that we should live in truth, but Jesus, Sam, you can summarize that in 2 sentences. It doesn't have the potency of the fictional, literary, artistic substructure that seems necessary to make that into something that's a compelling story.
And this was the question at the very beginning, which Sam has not answered really, for the reasons we talked about, is you can lay out an ethic, even pretending like your ethic makes as much sense or is as good as religious ethics. You're not grounding them in the type of drama that made religion compelling and uniting in the first place. How do you replace that? It goes against the definition of rationality to replace that. I would argue to some extent, although I'm sure somebody's going to disagree with me. But we can talk about it. But yeah, Harris needs to answer this question. He doesn't have a whole bunch of time left on the clock here, so let's see if he can answer it.
So this is where we might disagree. This could be a fundamental disagreement. Because I don't see the problem of nihilism the way you do, or the way it's advertised. Like once you rip out the false certainties and the bad evidence and the bad arguments and the mere dogmas imposed on us by prior generations, that hole never closes.
Just notice the language, imposed on us by prior generations, as opposed to passed down to us, given to us. Like Peterson says, it shows that his fundamental concern is with the fundamentalism of the past. It's again, I'm not saying that he's wrong, but because he's more liberally minded, he's less about humility and gratitude towards the previous generations, and he's more about, improvement and growth, right? So, interesting. Even in the language, you can see the temperamental difference.
Safely with anything else. You have to put something in its place that's shaped just like that, some other false certainty or some other story. And I simply don't think that's the case. I think there's so many things we outgrow, both individually, in our own childhoods, and culturally, that where there is no void left. There's no Santa Claus shaped void that we have to fill with the exact same thing.
But people certainly experience.
Right, well, Harris is right. This is a fundamental disagreement, but Harris is wrong. I'm sorry. Like, recent history has demonstrated that as you pull things out of that role, like Christianity and true religions, things immediately rush in to fill it, like the nature of our politics. And Peterson might give a psychological example here too, but this is a fundamental disagreement. You're not going to know until, I don't know if you can know. I think you'd have to do like a mass sociological experiment, which would be definitely unethical and impossible to do, to like prove. But I think Harris is wrong here. I really do. I think he's just wrong.
Some people, I'm not discounting the fact that it is hard to be happy in this world. I mean, we are living in a world that seems perfectly designed to frustrate our efforts to find permanent happiness.
So you asked me, you put me on the spot a while back.
But let me just add my answer to this. I just think there's the recipe for a good life, or at least a minimal recipe for a good life. It's not that this is all that's entailed, but this is certainly necessary, if not sufficient, is to live a life that is increasingly motivated by love and guided by reason. Right? You can't go very far wrong if you are motivated by love and guided by reason.
It's funny. This is I'm really pulling at Peterson here, but that idea of love with truth as her handmaiden is kind of a religious idea as well. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that reaction video. If you did, drop a like and please consider subscribing to see more. If you didn't, tell me why. I want to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. I want to have these conversations. If you want to see the rest of my content or explore the broader Pangburn universe that I'm a part of, click one of the buttons that should be floating around my head right about now. And as always, I hope to see you all out there engaging in the war of ideas.